We will now call the Plan Commission meeting of May 28th, 2024 to order. Roll call, please.
Hannah here.
Kupczynski here.
David here.
Skowski here.
Oldani here.
Seifert here.
That will get us to approval of minutes of May the 14th, 2024. Everybody take a minute. There's no questions, comments, or discussions. Motion on 3, the minutes.
Seifert moves to approve the minutes of May 14th, 2024.
Skowski, a second.
Roll call, beginning with Christine.
Hannah, I.
Kupczynski, aye.
Gavich abstains.
Skowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Okay. Item 4 is recent common council actions. Carrie, if you would, please.
Council approved the following: an ordinance approving amendments to the plan unit development for Creekside Corporate Park affecting the property at 9955 South 13th Street, an ordinance rezoning portions of the properties at 9514 South 13th Street, 9554, 9556, 9600, 9654, and 9700 South 13th Street, 9512 and 9601 South Bartell Court, and 741, 835, 901, and 913 West Ryan Road to reflect the FW floodway and FF flood fringe boundaries approved by FEMA and to amend the zoning code therefore. Also approved an ordinance adopting amendments to the comprehensive plan, City of Oak Creek, last amended December 30th, 2022 for the properties at 800, 812, and 910 West Oakwood Road. Council also held and remanded to the Plan Commission an ordinance to approve a rezone to RD1 two-family residential with no change to the floodway or flood fringe districts, and to amend the plan unit development affecting the portions of the properties at 641 and 819R East Drexel Avenue. Plan Commission will have an opportunity to review this at the June 11th meeting. Also held a resolution approving a condominium plat submitted by Ryan Jansen, Jansen Bruckner LLC for the Stonebrook on the Park condominium on the properties at 641 and 819R East Drexel Avenue, portions thereof, and approved a resolution approving a certified survey map submitted by Ryan Jansen, Jansen Bruckner LLC for the properties at 641 and 819R East Drexel Avenue and portions thereof. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Item 5 is a review of recent housing and zoning appeal actions. There were currently none. Item 6 is to review and discuss the quarterly Parks and Recreation Commission action. We will get that report on July the 23rd, 2024. Which will lead us to new business in item A, in its consideration of a conditional use permit by Vista Auto Works LLC for conditional use permit for an automotive sale indoor showroom with an existing multi-tenant building at 9555 South Chicago. Carrie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to give a clarification here, the property address is 9543 South Chicago Road. The tenant space is actually assigned its own address of 9555. So if anybody was confused as to why there were two addresses, that is why. The current zoning for the property is B4. It did have a conditional use permit that had been approved for the property previously, and we'll get into that. The proposal is for just the tenant space at 9555 South Chicago Road. This is a request for indoor vehicle sales, no outdoor storage or display. A maximum of 8 vehicles would be allowed within the building as it's currently set up. There would not be any repair or maintenance operations on site, and hours of operation are Monday through Saturday, 10 to 5, and that's by appointment only. The appointments would be scheduled based on online inventory, but again, that would be inventory of about 8 vehicles. So getting to the history of this property, there was a previous conditional use permit that had been issued to Lakeview Motors or Autos. They kind of went back and forth between the two. Crystal Lake Toyota Scion in 2020. That conditional use permit was actually limited to that tenant. So it was either good for 5 years, the lease of, or the term of the lease. So whenever it expired for Crystal Lake, whenever they moved out of the space, that conditional use permit expired itself. Within that conditional use permit, however, they were allowed to have an auto dealership, no service, no outdoor storage or display. There were some additional requirements with regard to landscaping, screening, and the installation of a trash enclosure. And again, we'll get into that. Unfortunately, about a year later, violations had been identified beginning in February, and that included outdoor storage and display of vehicles, including illegal parking on the grass. A conditional use permit, after several months of back and forth, was requested in October of that year, went to the Plan Commission. Plan Commission ultimately did not recommend that for approval in terms of the amendment. So that conditional use permit was basically still restricted to indoor only. No outdoor activities, no outdoor operations. And in May of 2022, the neighborhood preservation officer conducted a final inspection and determined that there were no open violations on the property, so they did come into a compliance. And on the screen right now is basically some of the same information that had been previously approved for that conditional use permit. Basically, parking is in two locations. There's the east parking lot and the north parking lot. All combined, there's about 39 spaces for the two tenant spaces that are there currently. The building can accommodate up to 3, but I believe that it's just split into 2 at the moment. So the tenant space that we're speaking about is the northern portion, and that's about 1,400 square feet of the entire building, which is about 4,800 square feet. And the proposed dumpster location, that's actually where the existing trash receptacle is. However, there is no enclosure as required and as was previously required under the conditional use permit that is now expired. As far as parking requirements are concerned for the conditional use, there's a little bit of a discrepancy. We have a 4,800 square foot building. Now that includes all tenant spaces and all other ancillary spaces within the building. The tenant space for the proposed vehicle dealership is, as I said, 1,430 square feet. There is another tenant in the building, and that is for a vape shop. We don't have the exact square footage for that, so the parking requirements, because they're cumulative according to code, are a little bit nebulous at this point because we don't know exactly how many square feet. Regardless, there would only be 2 required parking stalls for this particular use based on the square footage of the tenant space. If the entire building was just dedicated to retail space, then only 19 stalls would be required for the entirety. So we have an abundance of parking that's already available for this particular spot. And as we'll get into, there were a few things that happened on the property. So over the years, and this building was constructed in about 1986 or so, there was a requirement for landscaping and all of the usual requirements that go along with developing a property. At some point, and we don't have a record of this, that northern parking lot was installed. And this was brought up in a previous application before the Plan Commission for the previous tenant. So that parking area was expanded without any local review, and that's just kind of for your information as to where that extra parking may have come from. The landscaping that had been screening the parking on the east at some point was removed. Now, we don't know exactly why. It could have been that it was removed for, just die off and just not replaced, but there had been something there. In fact, there was a gravel area, gravel mulch area to screen the parking, and I'm not sure if that's been entirely removed. It's difficult to tell, and this is the Google Street View version from 2023 of the property. However, there is still a requirement that landscaping be installed and maintained to screen that parking, as has always been the case. So we do recognize that there have been some challenges with this property, and the challenges and the concerns that were raised in the staff report still remain. So we still have a concern for the fact that there were violations on the property, even though there was a conditional use permit. We had to go through many months of trying to get the property into compliance. The property is still not in compliance. And there is a recognition that this is a brand new application. This is a brand new operator. He was not involved in the previous operation. He was not part of the previous tenant lease or anything like that. So we do have that recognition, but those concerns, again, still remain for this particular use. So keep that in mind with the consideration of the motion on here, because this does have those concerns. There is no support for it at this time. However, staff would like to defer the rest of our time to allow the tenant and the applicant an opportunity to address the Plan Commission.
The applicant or the tenant like to come up, say a few words before we go to the commission? We'll need your name and address, sir.
Yeah, Amir Masood, 9555 South Chicago Road. So I guess kind of a little brief about me in general and doing business there. I've been in the auto industry for quite some time. I've never owned my own business before, so this is like a new opportunity for me to do something for myself. And I wasn't really aware of all the things that the prior tenants or like even the landlord that they didn't do, and it, you know, based on the condition use that was granted. And I'd like to say that I don't mind working with any of the zoning codes, with anything that you guys need, like for landscaping, closing the dumpster, we can have that worked out. So if you guys give me a time frame on when to have it done by, I would promise to do so. I mean, we have right now, we're coming into summer, so usually before fall, something like this would be done. I guarantee it to be done because really this is like kind of an investment for me into this business that it's really something for me to rely on. And I really like the area, I really like the place. And even though the indoor showroom is only capable to hold 8 vehicles, which I'm fine with because most of my sales are done online and they're by appointment.
Okay, so just to be clear, you are the renter, not
Yes.
the owner, and you're willing to take the financial burden of improving the owner's property?
Yes, which we've already started doing, by the way, because even the back of the building, there was a lot of stuff just dumped around. I'm not sure which tenants or which part of the building, but we did already take care of all that. I had to bring in 2 trailers, loaded everything up, cleared up the whole area in the back. And the dumpster, we took over the same contract they had with the Eagle Disposal, and I don't mind closing it if it is required by the city.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to speak on this matter? Seeing none. Carrie, anything else you want to add to it regarding dumpster enclosures, anything
Not at this time. Code requirements remain the same.
like that? Okay. We'll go to the commission for questions or comments. Christine, you want to start, please?
Yes, so I have a couple of questions for you, actually. So, you said you are the owner or renter?
A renter,
Okay.
Yeah.
So, maybe this question for both of you, Carrie and Amr. So, do you own, is there any other business near this property, like adjacent to it, or just this building has only him? Like you said that there's other businesses next to him.
there's 2 other businesses.
There's 2 other businesses. So how are you gonna make sure the compliant, not only coming from his business, not the other 2?
We have the requirement to keep an eye on this property due to the violations that have occurred in the past. So we have it on the radar to take a look at this property every so often to make sure that it is still compliant. If we find that there is a potential violation on the property, it first goes to, if we can identify where the potential violation belongs. If it's very clear that it's of a specific tenant, we will let the tenant know. We also let the property owner know, because ultimately it is the property owner's responsibility to ensure that the property and all of the tenants are in compliance with the zoning code.
Okay. I'm asking for his sake because he volunteered to bring all of his financial burden to kind of clean it up for the previous tenant. So I want to make sure this doesn't happen from others and he has to keep cleaning it up. So,
Understood?
okay. And you said it's by appointment only?
Yes.
Have you had any business like this before?
Yes.
Okay, and it's working?
Yeah, for something like in a small scale of inventory, A lot of times it's, well, you know, because we would list them online, and, you know, people send us messages, call us about it, inquiry about the vehicle, and we would set an appointment. Now, we do have the working hours, like within 10 to 5, but it really depends on how we flow within the business. But in regardless, like, we will have like opening hours for, so if somebody does want to come in for a walk-in, we could do so. But throughout, well, since 2020, it's been more online based, where it's, you know, basically them getting all the information, like the video walkarounds and photos. We also do video calls for customers, and they see everything right before they step in the door. So we wouldn't waste their time, they wouldn't waste ours at the same time.
How many employees you planning on having there, especially for the open hours?
Usually I think 2 in total, because we can kind of work the shifts in between.
Especially with the parking stalls and if people come in, so just,
Yeah,
okay. That's all I have, thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay. Ashley?
Nothing from engineering.
Chris?
I have no questions.
Don?
So ultimately, anything that's outstanding, Carrie, at this point would be the responsibility of the owner.
Correct. The landowner's responsibility, it is the landowner's responsibility to ensure that the property is in compliance.
Okay, so it's a great good faith effort on your part, but if you don't follow through, we don't ask you why it's not done. We ask the owners why it's not done. And I'm not sure what they're going to say. The owners are not here. Seems like.
Yeah, they're not in Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But,
Okay.
I've communicated with them, and we went over like most of this information. And for me to operate my business there, if it is something that I have to do, I'm willing to do it just so I can operate.
All right. I wish I could hear from the owners. This is very similar to something we had 2 weeks ago. And 2 weeks ago, we said no until the owners get their property up to date, then they come back. And I'm trying to go over my head how this is any different. And much like 2 weeks ago, the person who was going to be using that space was, I will take care of it, we'll fix it. Well, as I'm going to tell you what we told them, there's no guarantees. You can say all you want how you're going to do it, but there's absolutely no guarantees it's going to be done.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. The owner was here to speak for themselves. In this case, they're not. That's the difference. And I'm trying to really find some differences in this. And the outstanding items are the landscaping and
Dumpster?
the dumpster, correct? Are those the two?
And lighting, correct?
No, there's no new lighting that's been proposed. So if such time there would be new lighting or new fixtures proposed, they would have to be in conformance with the current code requirements, but there hasn't been a request for new lighting at this time. So it's really the landscaping and making sure that trash enclosure is
Yeah,
constructed.
which seems like very doable things, I think. Staff would have to tell you exactly how that needs to be done. I really don't have any questions. I'm just, this is kind of a tough one for me, so I'm just gonna shoot it over to Fred.
Pass it on.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I have a question for Carrie. Have you sat down with the applicant and gone over the discrepancies?
Yes, we've actually had a couple of conversations about this.
I know we did in the past. We did have a problem, but I'm just wondering about the present. Have we gotten to the applicant that he's aware of all the problems? And have they taken care of them? Right now, I don't think they have taken care of all.
Well, at this point, we've just gone through the conditional use permit process. So we have not been out on the site in a while. We haven't been out there to determine whether or not there's anything has been brought up to code. Now, again, it's the landowner's ultimate responsibility to make sure that that happens. But if the applicant has already gone through and done some of the remedies that we are recommending, we can certainly, as staff, go out there and verify.
I have been out to the property and have seen it.
Commissioner, I'm not sure that your comments are making it on the microphone.
I'm sorry. I've been out to the property and looked at it, and it appears that there has been no changes made since the last time I was there, and that was a year ago.
As far as the landscaping is concerned, it's not surprising that landscaping hasn't been installed just yet. Because the applicant has only been in that space since January of this year.
Okay.
So landscaping would really only have gone in possibly the last month. And at this point, you know, it's again, not surprising that that hasn't been taken care of for this, you know, as this applicant has indicated that he is willing to do. As for the landowner, I do not have any information as to why that wasn't done on their part. Same with the trash enclosure. It appears that there may have been a misunderstanding with the previous tenant. They thought that if they didn't have any outdoor storage or display of vehicles, they weren't required to put in the landscaping, and that was a misunderstanding.
Yeah, that's also what I was informed to add. But when I tried to contact them regarding it, they told me that there was landscaping required when we had to do outdoor storage. So I was kind of misinformed on that part up until this month.
So that we can
Yeah.
kind of explain. And as far as the trash enclosure is concerned, I don't have an answer for you as to why that was not completed. That was another requirement, again, mentioned under the previous tenant's conditional use permit. Ultimately, the responsibility of the landowner just didn't happen.
I notice also the parking lot is not in the best condition. You still have some gravel on the north end of the parking lot and on the west side of the parking lot.
You mean by like by the end where kind of behind the building?
Right.
Yeah, I think that one, from what I understood, it's been kind of gravelled. They never really like fully paved it like the front.
Okay.
Yeah. But we are also working on having a bit more cleaned up on the landscape around the parking in the front so that there wouldn't be like a lot of weeds. And that's something that I've been working on since last week. And like I said, I'm willing to take care of whatever I would have to, or on the behalf of the landowner, just for me to operate there, just to have my business running there and start selling cars.
Carrie, do these changes have to be brought up to date before we can issue a permit?
Well, the conditional use permit is just that. You add conditions onto what would be an approval. So within the conditions and restrictions, you would say you have to put in the landscaping, you have to put in a trash enclosure, you have to do anything that is, has a relevancy to the application before you. That would be something that would be in the conditions and restrictions if this were to be recommended for approval. As far as compliance is concerned, if this doesn't move forward, there are still some things that we would have to work with the landowner in order to bring them into compliance. It's going to be a little bit more challenging with an out-of-state landowner, so you won't see an immediate change, and that'll probably take some time to bring it into conformity.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll invite Fire up just to kind of comment on 8 vehicles and
Lease
About
space is about
1430.
1,400.
Mike, you want to take a mic?
Good evening, Mike Avey with Fire. So the previous tenant also had to conform to the current code conditions for fire code. So for indoor storage of vehicles for sales, they have to drain their fuel tanks and disconnect batteries. That's kind of the standard code that they have to conform to. That's what we would require for any other similar type of tenants that use that space for that use.
Okay, and beyond that,
Normal, I would say for us, is normal exit signs, extinguishers, things like that. Obviously, there's no repairs or garage work that can take place there. It's just sales and indoor storage of the vehicles
okay,
for the show floor, I should say.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
I guess I get a crack at the cat. Wasn't here 2 weeks ago, but I do trust it's similar in what Don's speaking of. we can take care of this in conditions and restrictions. I really feel bad that tenants stepping up to do this when the property owner is the proper party to do it. This is our chance to get it done. Unfortunately, you know, it'll be a financial burden on you, and that's something you can work out between you and the property owner going forward, because the city will spell out what the landscaping needs are gonna be, and of course, what that trash container is gonna have to be constructed of. As long as, you know, you're going in eyes wide open with it, I guess I can be okay, because we'll cover it in conditions and restrictions. But as Don said, it's tough when the property owner isn't here, because quite frankly, it's his property, his responsibility. And I really hate to see the burden unfairly shifted to you. So, do appreciate you stepping up though and getting the process, but I would encourage you to get a cost share on this, or if you arrange the work, he pays for it. Either way, we should get it done. We should get it done correctly. So, is there any other discussion,
Yeah.
questions, comments? Yes.
Yeah, so Gary, like, you said there is another tenant in the building, right?
I'm aware of one, but you said there's two others?
Oh, well, no, I'm the one who has the two spaces.
Okay.
Oh, so you have two of the three.
Yeah.
Okay, so how can the other tenant also participate in bringing all of this to compliance?
Again, this is all really the responsibility of the landowner and not the tenants. The tenant the applicant has just stepped up to do this.
So you're gonna do the entire cost for all those businesses on your own?
Well, I guess, you know, since we're the ones getting the conditional use and it's required for us to do so to operate, so I guess I will work my way into doing it. Because I already, you know, took over the lease, took over the place, did improvements on the inside, and worked with all my financial supporting for my floor plan, inventory, and all that. So I got everything pretty much set up. I'm just waiting for the full approval from the city. Like I said, you know, I'm gonna work through it. You know, it's fine. There's always obstacles in business, so you can always jump over them. Get things done. I always like to work within code. You know, make sure you know, I'm complying with the city, because that is a must. And also, I'm thinking about it being as an improvement for how the building looks, and try to generate more traffic to that area.
It's for you, for your business, because if this looks good, people will come
Yeah.
there.
Yep. So I'm considering this as an improvement for the property and also for my business. I don't plan on leaving, you know, in a year or two. I kind of want to stick around for a bit.
All right, thank you.
Personally, rather see it grow and take over the whole building, but, so, okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, motion 7A.
We have to add some restrictions on here, conditions and restrictions.
Well, this is just to determine whether or not you are going to recommend that the council approves the use itself.
Conditions and restrictions
2
will come
weeks
at the
later.
June 11th
Sure.
meeting.
Okay. All right, gotcha.
I do have one more question. So prior to this, there wasn't an issue with the use necessarily with these different conditions or restrictions. So the use was okay, it was the violations on the property.
In terms of how the history, excuse me, the history of this property, the use went through the process and was granted a conditional use before for indoor storage and display only. Similar operations, there were no service or maintenance or any kind of operations in that regard. They had a couple more employees. All of their hours were also by appointment. The issues really did stem from a couple of things. The expansion to outdoor storage and display without any local review or approval. The fact that the conditional use permit did not appear to be followed with regard to, again, the requirements for landscaping and the trash enclosure, which, excuse me, were term is escaping me at the moment, but basically it's just it was saying, yes, you still have to comply with these requirements, even though the property had previously not been in compliance. And, a few other things that happened on the property that didn't lead to confidence that that conditional use permit was actually being followed. So, yes, we had many violations back and forth. There was also a question as to whether or not there was another tenant in the building because they were operating under another name. So, did the conditional use expire? Did it not expire? Those were the questions that arose. So that's why there's still a concern for moving forward with this conditional use permit, is because the original conditional use was much the same, and then it crept. And it fell out of compliance, and that's when we ended up with the issues. Again, recognizing that was a previous operator. So the conditions and restrictions would have to be very tight, and we would have to keep a very close eye on this property to make, excuse me, to make sure that it is in compliance with those conditions and restrictions. And if we do run into an issue, there is also the process, although not often used, to revoke a conditional use permit.
Got something to add? I think what would be a really good faith effort if this passes through planning, then it's got to go through the common council and then come back for conditions and restrictions, is maybe when you come back, have some kind of plan. I mean, you know what needs to be done. Like present to the planning commission, here's what I got planned, or maybe even here's what I've already done. I think that would really go a long way with showing us that, if this passes, we made the right decision. If you come back and we're like, what have you done? Nothing, So that's just a suggestion.
No problem. Yeah, I have someone who's gonna actually, waiting until we finish from today and to start drawing out for the landscape plan.
Okay, thank you.
Oh. Somebody tell me, did we have a motion in a second?
No.
We don't. That's okay. Motion on 7A then.
Okay, I'll make the motion that the planning commission recommends that the common council approve a conditional use permit for vehicle sales for Visa Motor Works on the property at 9543 South Chicago Road. The tenant space address is 9555 South Chicago Road. After a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions that will be prepared for the Planning Commission's review at the next meeting, June 11th, 2024.
Hannah seconds.
Roll call, beginning with Ashley.
Chinsky, aye.
David Chai.
Guzekowski.
Aldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Hannah, aye.
Okay. Good luck, sir. We will see you on the 11th.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving forward, 7B is a plan review, review site and related plans for the American Company for an amendment to the access of a driveway affecting the properties at 9293, 9297 South 13th Street. Carrie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This may look familiar to some plan commissioners. This is actually one of the properties is currently the site of the Avid Hotel that is under construction. The other property is a vacant property that had been split from the overall as part of that development. And back in 2022, when the hotel received their ultimate approval, the access had been proposed to be shared with the existing driveway that is on the Steinhoffels property to the north. That was by an existing access easement, and over the course of these few months and a couple years that they've been under construction, it appears that the property owner has changed, the land has changed hands. So the property owner is now new for the Steinhoffels property. And it came to the attention of the developers that the easement language had an error in it. So the easement that everybody excuse me, thought was on the southern end of the Steinhoffels property and the northern end of this property. The easement language showed the incorrect location. So there were many attempts to work this out with the current landowner, and unfortunately, that easement language was not revised. They haven't been able to work with that landowner in order to get that done. So the request is for a driveway separate and apart from that access easement so that they can, whenever they're ready for the hotel to open, they actually can get to it. So the request is for the driveway to cross the vacant parcel to get to the hotel. So it requires a little bit of a site plan amendment because, again, we are looking at, I apologize, impacts to the parking that had been approved, and also because now we have additional impervious surface over a property that is vacant, we have some stormwater concerns. So, couple of things that we need to keep in mind. Milwaukee County DOT has reviewed this. They've given their we don't have any objection to this, but typically they do issue a permit. So if they have a separate approval or permit, we just need a copy to be submitted to the city. The plans themselves, missing a couple of things. Apologies. We do need the dimensions and the increase in impervious surface on the plans. And that's just to make sure that we're in compliance with stormwater regulations. Speaking of stormwater, there are some issues that are being worked out currently between the developer and the engineering department to ensure that stormwater is still handled on site for now both of the properties. So that will need to come to a conclusion and a resolution that is amicable and meets code requirements prior to this being completed, prior to any issuance of a permit. And then a couple of other housekeeping items that need to be included. It appears that the sign easement that was on the vacant parcel for the benefit of the hotel is missing on these plans. We just need to make sure that all easements are shown so that we ensure that we're not running afoul of those easement restrictions. And then finally, we'll need an updated landscape plan because obviously with the change to the parking lot and the access, that is going to necessitate the relocation and probably a little bit of a change to the approved landscape plan from what the Plan Commission had originally approved in 2022. With that in mind, there is a suggested motion for consideration on the screen in two parts. Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Carrie. Applicant, want to say anything or wait on questions? Okay, he's indicated he'll wait. Fred, you want to start us off?
I have no questions at this time. It appears to be already cut and dry.
Okay. Don?
I agree with Fred. I have no questions.
Chris?
No questions.
Ashley?
Engineering has currently been working with the designer on options to handle the stormwater.
Yeah, so I'm trying to see what is the intersection closer to this, where the access is needed.
So the closest intersection is 13th and Ryan, which is
Okay.
several parcels down.
So it's closer to that signal of that intersection. How far?
This
Okay.
is kind of across from the extension of the parking lot for the Aldi that's across the street. So if that gives you an idea, there are a few properties that are in between this property and the intersection. So there's about 3, maybe 4 properties.
Oh, it's northern of Aldi's area.
It's like right across from the parking lot for Aldi.
Okay. Would that be, this driveway, is it going to be private or public?
It's a driveway, so it would be,
Private.
right.
So they're going to be an easement if this vacant vacant,
Yeah, they'll need an easement agreement, an access agreement.
okay. Okay, I have no other questions. Thank you.
Ask fire anything? No issues with fire. It's just unfortunate the property owner to the north couldn't work out an easement. That's that was all kind of settled and done. But we are where we are. We cannot have a nice, shiny new hotel with no access. So, obviously, have to make this work. So, I have absolutely no issues with it going forward. Hopefully, the county moves at a rate that's acceptable by the approval date of opening this fall. So, keep us up to speed on that. And we'll work through the landscape things. It's kind of an oddball thing. With that, if there's no further discussion, motion?
Oldani moves that the Plan Commission approves the site plan submitted by Craig Sadonikow, sorry about that, American Companies for the properties located at 9293 and 9297 South 13th Street with the following conditions. One, that all relevant code requirements and conditions of Plan Commission approvals dated September 13th, 2022 remain in effect. And two, that the dimensions of the proposed driveway and change to the impervious surface are included on the plans. Three, that all stormwater requirements are coordinated with the engineering department. Any additional reviews and or permits that may be required as a result of stormwater improvements shall be obtained prior to issuance of a driveway permit and commencement of work. Four, that copies of all approvals and or permits from the Milwaukee County Department of Transportation are provided to the city prior to submission of a driveway permit application. Five, that all easements, including for signs, are included on the plans. Six, that an updated landscape plan is provided to the Department of Community Development for review and approval prior to the submission of a driveway permit application.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call, beginning with myself. Aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Hannah, I.
Pipchinsky, aye.
Okay, all set. Good luck. That will get us to item C, certified survey map. Review a request to divide the properties at 9600 South Howell Avenue. Melanie, all right.
The applicant is looking to divide the property into two single-family building sites. After the division, both of the lots will meet the minimum requirements for the RS3 zoning district. On screen is the proposed CSM. The Wisconsin Department of Transportation is only allowing one access point to Howell Avenue. You can see that as the 30 by 30 driveway easement. In the report, there was a copy of the joint driveway easement agreements for the review of the commissioners. There was also a tree inventory provided and included for review that will need to be a little bit more detailed, and there will also be a tree replacement plan required to be submitted. Staff will continue to work with the applicant about these requirements. With that, the suggested motion is on screen.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to commission applicant, anything, or you want to wait on questions? Okay, he's indicated he'll wait. Christine, you want to start us?
Yeah, I have no questions.
Ashley?
No questions.
Chris?
No questions, thank you.
Don?
I have no questions.
Okay, Fred?
No questions at this time?
I have none, but I'll just standardly ask fire, any problem with a shared residential driveway? Okay. None, as long as that shared easement is in place and rock solid, so one day we ain't plowing a driveway in from somebody's backyard. I'm good with it. So, with that, motion.
Oldani moves that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the certified survey map submitted by Brad Schmidt for the property at 9600 South Howell be approved with the following conditions. One, that the tree inventory and replacement plan is updated per code and submitted to the Department of Community Development for review and approval prior to recording the certified survey map. Two, that all technical corrections, including but not limited to spelling errors, coordinate geometry corrections, and corrections required for compliance with the municipal code and Wisconsin statutes are made prior to recording.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call, beginning with you, Chris.
Guzekowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seabird, aye.
Anna, I.
Pipchinsky, aye.
Gavich, aye. Oh, yeah, come on up, please. Name and address, please.
Brad Schmidt, 1686 Blue Spruce Lane, Heartland, Wisconsin. My question to staff is the tree replacement or the tree plan that I came up with. Had a licensed architect do it. What's the problem with that? And does staff recommend what types of trees to put in? There's nothing in the code besides canopy, I believe. Or
So-
will this be given to me like at a later time?
Yeah, we can certainly talk about this offline, but one of the things that's missing here is there's no replacement schedule on here. It just shows trees that have been removed. But we'll need the details for the trees that are proposed to be in the replacement, so.
Okay, it's
those
just
are
the
things.
tree, just where, location, and,
The
quantity?
species, the details for that, when we can talk about that offline. There
Offline.
are some requirements in code, but yeah, we need the details.
and I'll get an email from you.
Yep, we will email you with that information.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. That'll get us to 7D. It's certified survey map for the seller, combining the properties at 800 and 812 West Oakwood Road. Melanie?
The applicant is looking to combine these two properties. A revised certified survey map was supplied to staff after the reports went out and was provided to each commissioner for review. The current CSM addresses the concerns that were raised in the original staff report. On screen is a snip of the current and revised CSM. With that, the suggested motion is on screen.
Okay. Before we go to commission applicant, anything? Wait for questions. Okay. Fred, anything?
I'd like to ask the applicant the reason that you're trying to develop this or this property up.
Bill Nelson's looking to,
Oh, need your name and address.
Dan Shear, N1724 Riggard Road, Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. He's looking to just add a paved parking surface for his patrons at an establishment out there.
Yeah, so Fred, he's really gonna add just going east of the existing building, and,
Right.
you know, they're parking on the gravel there, but he had to buy the entire property. They just wouldn't give him that one piece. Nothing's really planned going to the
Okay, I thought maybe there was some development down the road.
north. No, he didn't indicate any.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Don,
No questions.
Chris,
No questions.
No questions.
Nothing here, no.
come on up, sir. Yeah, name and address, like, last week. Oh, we need you on the mic.
Ken,
You can move the thing up.
Ken Trudeau, 910 West Oakwood Road, the neighbor.
Yeah,
I thought on the last one he said he was going to expand the kitchen or towards us.
yeah, it's different. He's gonna do some expansion with the kitchen to the west, but the reason he acquired this property
Right.
was really for that
Okay, which would be east side. Which,
east side.
awesome.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
He'll be coming through with those expansion plans, and then you'll see the notice of,
Okay, awesome. Thank
Okay.
you guys very much.
all right. Christine was a no, I have nothing, so, motion.
Guzekowski makes a motion that the plan commission recommends the common council to the common council at the certified survey map submitted by William Nelson, the seller for the properties at 800 and 812 West Oakwood Road be approved with the following condition. One, that all technical corrections, including but not limited to spelling errors, minor coordinate geometry corrections, and corrections required for compliance with the municipal code and Wisconsin statutes are made prior to recording.
Oldani seconds.
Roll call, beginning with you, Don.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Hannah, I.
Kipchinsky, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Okay. Then item E concerns the same property. It's a rezone. Again, submitted by the seller to rezone those properties at 800 West Oakwood Road to B2 Community Business. No change to the floodway or the flood fringe or C1 Shoreland Wetland Conservancy District. So, Melanie, make sense of that?
Yes, the applicant is requesting approval to rezone this property, as the mayor mentioned, from M1 manufacturing to B2 community business. The reason is due to the combination of the two parcels in the previous agenda item. This will allow cohesive zoning and will avoid any conflicts between the two districts' requirements when it comes to any redevelop in the future. There will be no changes to the floodway, floodplain, or shoreland conservancy districts. Suggested motion is on screen.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. Again, you can wait on questions if there's any, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Christine,
I have no questions.
Ashley,
No questions.
Chris,
Question.
Don,
No questions.
Fred.
No questions.
I have none myself, so motion then on E.
Seifert moves that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council that the property at 800 West Oakwood Road is rezoned from M1 manufacturing to B2 community development. No change to the flood fringe or the flood way or the C1 Shoreline Wetland Conservative District after a public hearing.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call, beginning with Fred.
Seifert, aye.
Hannah, I.
Kipchinsky, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Okay. That'll get us to adjournment. Anybody know how to do this?
Yeah, I'll try. Oldani moves to adjourn at, what is it, 6:53.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call, beginning with Christine.
Christine. Hannah, I.
Kipchinsky, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.